You know that thing teachers told you about not being able to divide by zero because it's impossible? Yeah, that's not actually why. And the food pyramid? Propaganda. Columbus discovering America? Didn't happen. Your tongue having taste zones? Made up. School lied to you. A lot. And today we're talking about it. Look, I'm not saying your teachers were evil. Most of them were doing their best with outdated textbooks and zero budget for supplies. But somewhere between state standards and the absolute chaos of managing 30 children, education became less about truth and more about simplification. And some of those simplifications? They weren't just incomplete, they were wrong. So here's what we're doing. I'm going to walk you through the most confidently incorrect things school taught you as fact. The stuff that sounded so official, so textbook, that you probably still believe some of it. And by the end of this, you're either going to feel vindicated or like you need to apologize to your 8th grade self. Let's go. Okay, starting strong with something that everyone learned, the tongue map. You know the one, the diagram that showed you that the tip of your tongue tastes sweet, the sides taste sour and salty, and the back tastes bitter. It was in every science textbook. Teachers would have you put sugar on different parts of your tongue, like some weird culinary experiment. Here's the problem. It's completely made up. The whole thing comes from a mistranslation of a German paper from 1901. The original study basically said, hey, different parts of the tongue have slightly different sensitivity to tastes, which fine, true, but barely noticeable. But when it got translated to English, someone turned slight variants into specific zones, and then textbook companies ran with it for a century because it made a clean diagram. Your tongue tastes everything everywhere. The map is a lie. You've been lied to since 2nd grade. And the worst part? You probably did that tongue experiment in class and convinced yourself you could feel the difference. That's called placebo, and it's powerful. Alright, while we're destroying your childhood education, let's talk senses. How many do you have? And if you just said 5, congratulations, you fell for it. Touch, taste, sight, smell, hearing. The classic 5, clean, simple, easy to remember. Also, incomplete. You have way more than 5 senses. And I'm not talking about some vague sixth sense nonsense. I'm talking about actual, measurable, biological senses that scientists recognize, and your body uses every single day. Proprioception, your sense of where your body is in space. That's why you can touch your nose with your eyes closed and don't just smack yourself in the face. Thermoception, your ability to sense temperature. That's separate from touch. Nociception, pain reception. Also separate. Equilibrioception, your sense of balance, controlled by your inner ear, and there are more depending on who you ask. Some scientists say we have closer to 20 distinct senses, but 5 is easier to teach. 5 fits on a worksheet. So that's what you learned, and that's what stuck, even though it's reductive to the point of being wrong. Anyway, your body is way cooler than elementary school gave it credit for. Moving on, this one makes me irrationally angry, and I need you to understand why. Remember learning that blood is blue inside your body because it doesn't have oxygen yet and it only turns red when it hits the air? No, nope, wrong. Blood is always red. The oxygenated blood is a darker red like maroon, but it is still red. It is never blue. Not in your veins, not in your heart, not anywhere. But wait, you're thinking, my veins look blue through my skin. Yeah, because of light refraction. Your skin and the fat underneath scatter light in a way that makes veins appear blue from the surface. It's an optical illusion. The blood inside? Still red. And yet this myth is so pervasive that medical diagrams literally draw deoxygenated blood as blue to make it easier to distinguish from oxygenated blood, which just reinforces the misconception even more. It's a teaching shortcut that became fact in people's brains. And now we have adults walking around thinking they have blue raspberry Gatorade in their veins. Your blood is red. Always has been. Let's please move on before I lose it. Okay, real talk for a second. If you're sitting here thinking, wow, school really just made stuff up. Yeah, kind of. But also, not really. Most of this wasn't malicious. It was simplification for the sake of teaching kids who can barely sit still. The problem is that a lot of people never learn the real version later. The oversimplified explanation just stuck. And there's more. So much more. Because we haven't even gotten to history yet, and oh boy, history is where things get spicy. Let's keep going. Alright, I'm just gonna say it. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. I know, shocking, groundbreaking. Truly no one has ever said this before. But genuinely, how did this myth last so long? There were already millions of people living here. You can't discover a place where people already are. That's not discovery, that's just showing up. Also, and this is important, Columbus never even set foot in North America. He landed in the Caribbean, the Bahamas. He thought he was in India. The man died thinking he'd found a shortcut to Asia. He was geographically confused the entire time. And on top of all that, Vikings landed in North America 500 years before Columbus. Leif Erikson and his crew were in Newfoundland around the year 1000. We have archaeological evidence. It's not a debate. So why did we learn the Columbus version? Because it fit a specific narrative about European exploration and American mythology. It was easier to teach. It sounded heroic. But it wasn't true. Now let's talk about the food pyramid. You remember this thing, right? The big, colorful triangle that told you to eat 6 to 11 servings of bread a day and go easy on fats? Yeah, that was funded by the grain industry. I'm not even exaggerating. The USDA's dietary guidelines in the 90s were heavily influenced by lobbying from agriculture groups, particularly the wheat and corn industries. They wanted to sell more grain, so they made sure grain was the foundation of the food pyramid. And fats? Demonized. Even healthy fats like olive oil and nuts were lumped in with butter and told to use sparingly. Meanwhile, the pyramid told you to eat 11 servings of carbs a day. 11. And we wonder why everyone was tired all the time. Modern nutrition science is very different now. Healthy fats are good. Whole grains are fine, but you don't need 11 servings. Protein and vegetables matter way more than anyone told you. The food pyramid wasn't nutrition science, it was economic policy disguised as health advice. And schools taught it as gospel. For decades. Okay, last one. And this is my personal favorite because it's less about facts and more about predictions. You won't always have a calculator in your pocket, so you need to learn to do this in your head. Guess what I'm holding right now? A calculator. That can also film in 4K, access the entire sum of human knowledge, and tell me the weather in Bangladesh in 3 seconds. I have not done long division by hand since 2009, and I'm fine. Look, I'm not saying math isn't important. Problem solving, logic, understanding how numbers work, super valuable. But the idea that you'd ever need to manually calculate a square root in real life? That was based on a world that no longer exists. And to be fair to teachers, they had no idea smartphones were coming. No one did. They were preparing us for their world, not ours. But it's still funny that the thing they swore we'd never have access to is now literally glued to our hands 24/7. So, school taught you a lot of things. Some of them were great. Some of them were, let's say, interpretive. And look, this isn't about trashing teachers. Most of them were doing their best in a broken system with outdated materials and impossible expectations. But it's worth knowing where the oversimplifications were. It's worth questioning the stuff you learned as absolute truth, because a lot of it wasn't. If this video made you go, wait, what? At any point, leave a comment telling me which one got you, or tell me what you learned in school that turned out to be wrong. I know there's more. If you want more stuff like this videos that make you rethink things you thought you knew, subscribe. I do this kind of thing a lot, and frankly, it's fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.